the webinar. And so, Eric, the floor is now yours.
Okay,
I'm
great.
gonna stop my share, and you feel free to start
Okay,
yours.
awesome. Let me just get this going here. Appreciate everybody, everybody being here. Really appreciate the interest in the topic and everybody showing up. That's great. First things first, I don't know who I'm talking to, and I can't even see who I'm talking to. One request I have, if you can't do it because like you have a baby on your lap or whatever, frankly, if you do, that's totally fine. If anybody who's comfortable doing it, if you could please put on your video, like it's just so much more engaging to talk to actual faces as opposed to just, I don't know, blocks on the screen. Anybody who's comfortable turning on their video, I'm not going to call you out or anything like that. But I think it'll make the presentation a little bit better. Because I can read the room better if I can see the room. Who here, and you can put something in the chat also. How many of you are solo entrepreneurs right now?
You could just wave your hand. You know how to do that, everyone? There's a button where you call waving the hand, and you could just raise your hand. So far, only 2 people.
Okay, so we have 5, 6, 7, something like that. Who has a larger business where they're not a solo entrepreneur anymore, or a larger organization? Doesn't need to be for profit. All right, a couple. So I'd love to hear the goal of this presentation is really like practical and not just pie in the sky. You can read amazing books and watch amazing YouTube videos on this topic. There's tons and tons out there in terms of how to stay motivated and keep your mojo going and how to stick with something that's difficult. That's nothing new. There's all kinds of great content on that already. What I hope to bring to the table here is a little bit of just a practical perspective of, okay, you want to do that, but how are you actually going to do that? Like, what is going to give you the strength to follow through on that? Because there is nobody to hold you accountable, and there's nobody to hold your hand when you're a solopreneur. Solopreneur to me just is a solo entrepreneur. So you're running a business, but you don't have anybody else who's a full-time employee who's doing it with you. So you might have contractors, you might have other people that are service vendors, but there's nobody else sitting with you day to day, which is a super lonely place to be. It gets old really, really quickly. And it's really most businesses start off as solo entrepreneurs starting a business. And one of the reasons that most businesses fail is because it's really, really tough to stick with it. There are so many things that are going to get in the way of doing what you want to do day to day. Can you guys all see my screen here? You see that working on your own?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So one of the key things is nobody else is going to do it for you. You know, when you're working in a job, you have a boss that tells you what to do. When you're working for yourself, you're fighting against the tide of there are so many things I could do. Who knows what I'm going to do? And there's nobody to hold me responsible if I'm doing a good job or not. And it's all, in a double totally. I'm the only one who's in control of this. That means that everything that you do is going to determine the success or the failure of the business, like in a very direct way, much more so than if you were in an actual day-to-day job. Hold on, I'm just trying to go to the another component is that you have to have a life. Like your work-life balance is like not just a catchphrase. It gets extremely blurred when you're a solo entrepreneur. You're taking calls at all hours of the evening. You're getting up early. You're traveling. You're working with the marketing guy. You're working with an outsourced sales team. You're working with all sorts of different people that are fighting against you having any kind of balance whatsoever in your life and in your day-to-day. And the goal here is I want to keep this actionable. So whether you're a solo entrepreneur right now or whether you're thinking about it, just getting started, I want to keep it, you should walk away with something practical, tangible. Does anybody have any questions or something before we get started? I can give like a formal presentation, that's no problem, but you could also see amazing formal presentations on YouTube. Are there any particular challenges? You can put something in the chat. You can take yourself off mute if you want, or raise your hand if you want to. Anybody have anything to say or any questions they want to ask before we get started?
I think
Anybody?
I think you hit it the nail on its head. You know, it's lonely up here, and you have a lot of things to do, especially if you're wearing many hats. Just your topic hit the core. You know, you can have different organizations, different businesses, different investments, different things, but you're your own motivator. You're your own execution. You know, times have changed. You know, you don't need an HR department. You can get a service. You don't need a secretary. You can get a service. So, but the question is, how do you stay on top as an individual to keep yourself totally motivated and push through the day?
Yes, that is that. It is it, okay. Amazing. So let's dive in. Anybody have any other points they want to raise? Any other specific questions they want to cover? Thank you, Mendel. Okay, let's dive in. Number one, a solo entrepreneur is just somebody who is running an organization on their own. There's no other full-time W-2 employee. Sometimes you might have a 1099 contractor, but bottom line is, if you ask who is this company, it's just you. Without motivation, you will almost for sure fail as an entrepreneur, because you need, like, you know, that's one of the most key important, in addition to being able to take rejection and take negativity and let it roll off your back. Aside from that, I think, you know, keeping a constant awareness of, I need to remain motivated, I need to remain happy in this business, and there are things that I need out of work and out of life, and if I don't focus on those things, I'm going to burn out, and then this company will be just something that I did at one period of time. If you don't stay motivated, the company is just not going to make it. So I think I said that a few times right now, but that's really prominent and really important. Okay, so the first thing that's going to help keep you motivated is understanding, you know, why you're doing this to begin with. You have to have a larger purpose. If it is just to make a lot of money, that's great. It's not enough. You have to have a reason why you're doing what you're doing. You have to have a actual goal in mind and a plan with how to get there. If you don't have that, you're usually going to get thrown off when something takes you out of your lane, as happens all the time. So if you have, for example, I want to be able to provide for my family. I need to be able to earn a living long term. I don't want to be stuck in the rat race of never being able to buy a home. So I have a goal of owning a business that throws off $150,000 a year, and at the end of 10 years, hopefully, is a sellable asset. And, you know, I can get $2 million out, put that away for retirement, move on to the next thing. That's a very powerful why. That's not just financials of, I want to make a lot of money. It's a very specific, very tangible, very practical. Other people want to get fulfillment out of their work. They want to see, you know, people, they want to be able to help their clients in way ABC. They want to bring a solution to the market that's never existed before. They're passionate about this particular project. They then will need to figure out how to make money with that project, but that's a powerful why. If you don't have a why in terms of how you're doing things, it's very easy to get thrown off track. At the same time, you need to have like an actual roadmap. Most solo entrepreneurs, most companies in general, but solo entrepreneurs in particular, they don't have real clear goals and objectives. If you ask an entrepreneur what their goal is, they'll tell you, well, I'd like to double sales. When do you want to do it? Tomorrow, right? Like, there's no plan behind it. There's no specificity around it, and specificity leads to credibility. And that's true externally with all of your clients, and it's certainly very true with yourself. So you need to be really specific. I mean, the calendar, you know, the secular calendar right now gives you a nice window. Everybody's thinking, okay, 2024, what do I want for 2024? What are my goals? I'm in a certain place right now. Where do I want to be? So they need to be really, really clear. And the goals, when you're setting goals for yourself as a solo entrepreneur, you have to focus on the building blocks that you can control. So, for example, if you know you have a company now that's $50,000 in revenue, and you want to get it to 300,000 next year, that's great. That's not really a plan. That's not measurable. It's not actionable. There's no way to actually take. What are you supposed to do on a Tuesday to get it to that point? So a practical example would be, you know, let's say it was a business where I don't know, outbound outbound phone calls are what gets sales. That's what makes the cash register ring. That's what makes sales happen. So if that's the case, you can control how many phone calls you make each day. You can control how many outbound emails you send. You can control how many events you go to. Those are all things that there's no one else that is standing in the way. It's important to set goals that are real and tangible, that are in your control, as opposed to just focusing on the outcome. You have to practice some kind of mindfulness, whether you're doing this in a Hasidus type of way, or whether you're doing it with a secular approach. They're really very similar. You need to take some time for yourself to remind yourself why you're doing what you're doing. The main point of everything I have to say today is it's all up to you, and there's nobody else. And that can either be a freeing feeling where you don't have to rely on anybody else but the Ribono Shel Olam to make this happen for you. And at the same time, it can be a crushing feeling if you don't feel like you have a self-created support system where you actually have a predictable way that this is going to go. You have to remind yourself every day. I would recommend setting literally 15 minutes a day of time on your calendar where you're able to actually focus just on this. You need to have some way to keep yourself motivated. And if you don't have that, again, you'll probably burn out. You need to have, I would say, every day, minimum of 3 times a week, 15 minutes on your calendar to remind yourself why you're doing what you're doing. The next step is you have to create, here again, keeping it really, really practical. You have to create a positive work environment for yourself. Everybody knows how they work best. Most people think I could just work on my cell phone from a laptop on my couch. And most people are not really able to work their best that way. There's a reason why companies have offices. If in a traditional office environment, there's a reason why they don't just give everybody a couch and a laptop. They have a desk. You have to design a space, again, using your limited resources, because almost every startup and solo entrepreneur is bootstrapping it. So you don't have tons of cash to spend. You're not going to go out and spend 10 grand on fancy office furniture. You really shouldn't, unless you have money to spare. There are easy, cheap ways that you can figure out the best you can do with your resources and your space constraints to give yourself an actual workspace. I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs I talk to that they work from a folding table in their bedroom. And it's really, really tough. At least get yourself a good chair, nice furniture, the right actual tools to do what you need. You should have a proper webcam. You should have any subscriptions that you need that are essential to your business, like Zoom or Calendly, all those kind of things. Make sure that you have a real space physically, and you have to figure out how to remove distractions. I talk to so many solo entrepreneurs that are young parents, and I did that the same. When I was 20, I founded my major company that I was successful with, was a recruiting firm. When I was 25, my daughter was, 4 months old at the time. So I did exactly what I'm telling you not to do. Do like I say and not like I do, or not like I did. Because in the beginning, for the first 2 months, I worked on a folding table from my bedroom. It was really pretty unhealthy. And once we moved to a bigger, house, I had a dedicated bedroom. It went a lot better. That's something that's probably worth investing $200 to $500 a month to get a desk somewhere. It could be in the back of your friend's office, but just a desk somewhere to actually work so that you can spend time on the business. Whatever is going to keep you moving day to day. Again, there are no rules. You can do whatever you want. If you want to have a picture of great Rabbanim up, wonderful. If you want to have a nice Zen atmosphere with amazing plants and all kinds of other things that make you smile, great. If you want to have motivating photos of your friends and family, awesome. Whatever it is, just you take the time. Don't just work at a cluttered desk, because all these things really impact your day to day. Establishing a schedule. Again, nothing I'm going to say is really, really complicated, but this is really key. You have to figure out how many hours a week am I looking at working? What hours each day do I want to work? Just as a baseline. You can always do less, you can always do more. That's the great thing about being a solo entrepreneur. There's no one else that you have to answer to. If you want to go out to your kid's basketball game at 4:30, like I did last week, wonderful. But you have to have some kind of baseline default routine. Like, for example, I'm a solo entrepreneur right now. I have a business coaching practice. That's really all I spend my time doing right now. I have a couple other businesses that I spend a very little time, an hour a month on, something like that. But I'm a solo entrepreneur. I get to my desk at 9 in the morning and I generally leave at 6 in the evening, with some time for lunch and all kinds of other things that can come up in between. But like, those are my general parameters. And on Friday, I usually work till about 3. So like, there's a default and a baseline there. I, of course, vary that and I deviate from that because that's the whole reason that I'm doing this. Like, because I want that kind of flexibility and I want the ability to make adjustments. But you have to have a baseline or else it easily turns into 2 o'clock and you didn't do anything. The most important thing is that any entrepreneur, whether it's a solo entrepreneur or somebody running a 500-person organization, is you have to be able to prioritize tasks. Nobody who is successful has enough time to complete all of the tasks that they want to complete that day. Nobody. And people often misattribute the definition of success as being somebody who gets a lot of stuff done. And really, it's about prioritizing what you're proactively deciding you're not going to do, or you're going to delay doing. So you have to have just a simple to-do list, whether you're doing it on a piece of paper. I usually recommend just making a Google sheet and you putting a priority level of 1 to 10. What the task is, you should have a weekly, immediate task for this week of what you want to accomplish. You can have things that you want to do every single day. Those should really make it into your calendar. And you can have a list of projects of things that if you're walking down the street and you think of something you'd like to do to improve the business, you can take it down in this note and then you'll deal with it later. And at the end of each week, you go through that list and prioritize what you want to do for the coming week. All of this is like really, it sounds simple, but very few people do this on their own. If you've never done it before, I'm happy to walk you through how to do it. You can reach out to me offline. But prioritizing the tasks, and I think people have sometimes a little bit of a high expectation of how much they're really going to accomplish. And it's great to always have high expectations for yourself, as long as they don't make you get down on yourself. So that's the key thing, that you want to have high expectations so long as they're not working against you, basically. Quarterly planning, I think, is kind of the most important thing, and that gives you that's enough time to really accomplish something real. If you look at what am I going to accomplish this week, it's usually task oriented. It's not big picture pie in the sky projects. But on a quarterly level, you should have real things that you want to accomplish, longer term goals, and and a sense of the tasks that are going to get you there, and who else you need to involve, if anybody, in terms of getting you to that space. An important thing to do with the to-do list is, let's say you have a project that you want to select a CRM. That's a pretty standard one that most solopreneurs kind of need to go through. So that's a big, huge, hairy project. That's really it's not fun. Nobody likes doing it, at least nobody I know. And it's like you could spend a year doing that. So how do you break down a project like that? And you'll have many of those where it's actually something you can do. So the number one is selecting a CRM is a macro goal. The way to do it is, okay, I need to look through, I need to spend 2 hours researching which CRMs are appropriate for my business, select the top 3, do phone calls with each of them over the course of the next 2 weeks, and then select one by the following date. Like, that's the general mantra of, like, that's how you can go about approaching a project like selecting a CRM. And you can insert your own type of project here, whatever makes sense for you. But the important point is to break down the project into smaller bites so you can actually look at things that you can accomplish on a day-to-day basis. And one important point that I left off here, on that same sheet, if you're using this system of making a Google sheet, have one tab that's called completed. Every time you knock off a task, you just copy and you cut and paste it into the completed tab. And that really gives you a sense of fulfillment as you're going, that you're actually accomplished something. You'll look back and quickly, most people that I do this with, and I have a few clients where I'm doing this currently, they look at their list and they're like, after 2 weeks, they've got dozens of things in there. So it's dozens of tasks that they've written down. They've taken the time to understand what they are, have written them down, and they've made it onto the sheet, and they got completed. In just 2 weeks, you'll see dozens of things that you're crossing off. That gives you, that's what gives most people the sense of fulfillment and the fuel to kind of keep going. The next thing, I could lose 20 pounds. It's not 50, thank God, but I could lose 20. It's important to get regular exercise. I would say this is like it is so common for solo entrepreneurs to just be in like really rough shape, because when there's always another project to do, like people just don't prioritize exercise and moving. I'm certainly not a fitness coach nor qualified to be one. If you need a coach to do that, if you need a trainer, do that. If you need to buy a Peloton bike and put it in your basement, do that. But you have to find some way to force yourself to actually move, because it's like 80% of solo entrepreneurs are just like, if you ask them what they do for exercise, it's like zero, nothing. So you have it literally impacts like your day to day. You will feel more worn out. You'll be more irritable. You'll be less likely to actually follow through on anything that you want to do if you're not taking care of yourself. Exercise, healthy diet. If you're just eating fast food and junk and whatever you can get on Uber Eats all the time, nothing that grew out of the ground, you're not going to feel good. And the second you start feeling bad as a solo entrepreneur, it's not just like your job is at risk. The whole company is at risk, and the whole enterprise of what you're trying to do depends on you. It won't happen if you're not in a good place. Does anybody here get enough sleep? I doubt it. So I think you have to have, again, it's about boundaries, and at least have a default of what you're shooting for. Try to go to bed at midnight if you have to get up at 7. Like, I think most people, everybody knows what they need, but if you're not taking care of yourself, that's the main point. I would be remiss if I didn't put this here. I can tell you, certainly for myself, there have been times where I've been really good about all three things on this list. There's been times when I've been really bad at them. It's just, every day is a new opportunity, and you have to stay on it. It does literally impact the bottom line of the business, because there's only you. This is really important as a solo entrepreneur, to make sure that you're not just in your own head, in your own bubble. You need to find some kind of community or network to join that's going to help you with the actual business. So I'm not talking about a social network, although that's great and essential too. If you're in the accounting field, you need to find a group of accountants that you can join that meet once a month on Zoom or once a week or whatever. If you're, whatever you are, if you're a SaaS company, you need to find some sandbox where other competitors play. You need to develop a support network to find vendors. That's the best, that's a very tangible point that you can use, and you should use a support network to help you find. You're going to need to set up the machine from scratch. Whenever you need a new vendor, if you are well connected, you won't have a problem doing it. And if you need to hire somebody, you're not going to have nearly as tough of a time finding the right person to hire. So find some area, whether it's online or in person, where people who are some ways similar to you in the same industry hang out, and be able to use them as a resource. Another important thing is really what you're doing right now, is like connect with fellow solo entrepreneurs, other small business people, even if they're in completely different businesses than you are. That's almost, it's a totally different type of good. They're not competitive with you in any way. And at the same time, they have all the same struggles. So it's important to feel like you're not alone. You truly aren't alone. All of you are in different cities, different houses. Nobody here, I don't think anybody's best friends. At the same time, like you're all operating your own thing, or at least those of you who are solo entrepreneurs are. And it's important to be able to develop that healthy network of somebody that you can call on, ask how they, you can use a hook of like a problem you're struggling with, but really you just need to be able to engage with people who are doing the same things that you're trying to do. And this is not meant to be self-serving, and it doesn't need to be me. But you need to find somebody who you can lean on who actually has time for you. So it can be a Rav, it can be a rabbi, it can be a Rebbitzin, It can be somebody who's 10 years older than you and was trying to do the same thing. It can be a sibling. If you're married, I wouldn't recommend it being your spouse. Spouses are too treasured a relationship, frankly. In most cases, most people, I don't think that's a great idea. If you're the exception, wonderful. My hat is off to you. I wouldn't recommend making your spouse your coach or mentor. But you need to have somebody. You need to be able to lean on somebody for advice, a shoulder to cry on, practical tips, whatever it is. There needs to be somebody in your life that you can figure out a way forward together when you get stuck. You have to continually be learning, and it's from my kids' school. My wife and I have 4 kids between 7 and 16. Their mantra is to create lifelong learners. I think that's really an essential component of entrepreneurship. Every entrepreneur that I've ever met that's really successful is extremely curious about the world around them. They like learning about things. They like telling stories. They like investigating, and they like seeing how they can contribute their magic to this world. And that's a really key component. I think that's what Coach Baruch wants us to do in this world. And at the same time, that's what makes people successful in business. So you need to find ways, whether it's reading books, which nobody does anymore, or listening to audiobooks, or having certain subscriptions that are trade specific for you. Having people that you can use LinkedIn as a great resource. Every industry is on LinkedIn, and you just have to make sure you don't get sucked into scrolling for 4 hours and forget to actually do any work. But you have to find some way to constantly be learning, whatever that is. Find a podcast you love and listen to it every week. Something that is not just, okay, I'm in the hamster wheel and I'm doing the thing. Let me keep doing it. You have to mix in there some block of time where you're actually learning. Webinars, online courses, books, whatever the method is. This is super important. I still have in my desk drawer. This is a fancy pen. I've never bought one like it before or since, that I take out every once in a while and remember my first year working, because I had a goal that I set for myself. It was a pretty high goal. I did meet it, and I want to reward myself, and I want to create a physical memento that I would associate with that. It was a specific revenue number I wanted to hit when I was working as a recruiter, which is really a sales position for somebody else. It's really important to keep that. Whenever you have a bad day, you take out that kind of memento. It is good to have a physical thing. It doesn't have to be expensive. It could be some little tchotchke that sits on your desk. But you have to have a way to reference back to the good stuff that's happened, so that you stay motivated through the rough times, basically. You really should have goals that are written out, like what you want to do. I would say quarterly and annually, and you can make pie in the sky goals too. I have one of my mentors. He does a 100-year plan. He takes a person. You start with whatever your age is now. I'm 41. Makes a goal for the next 10 years. So I would have from 41 to 50 annual goals. And then at 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100. Like literally, it's a 100-year plan. You can take it to that extreme, but at the very least, you should have quarterly goals and annual goals. And you should really be revisiting those, continually making sure that they're sensible, that they're reasonable. Sometimes you'll set a goal and you'll realize after you start working towards it, this just wasn't reasonable. I was never going to hit this, and that's okay. You can revise the goal. Again, you're in control of the entire thing. You have to find things that energize and recharge you. Whether it's physical exercise, that's great. Whether it's, again, whatever gets you going, you have to have a life outside of just eating, breathing, sleeping this company and getting it off the ground. You have to do something else. So whatever that is, it could be learning, it could be chesed activities, it could be anything, but it has to be something. It's less about what the thing is than having something else. Many solo entrepreneurs, they burn out because their life is the business and the business is their life. And if it doesn't go supremely well immediately, that is really hard to maintain. So you have to have something else that's feeding you positive energy and positive vibes throughout the process, or else it just increases the chance that you're going to burn out and take your eye off the prize. You can follow people who are industry leaders and influencers in whatever space that you're in. Again, that's just part of motivation, part of knowledge, part of being kind of a lifelong learner. All of that's important. You're on your own. So you have to learn from, if you want to follow, I don't care what your business is, you can follow Elon Musk or Bill Gates or, some figure like that. Or if you want more, motivational type things, you can follow Charlie Harari, you can follow Simon Sinek, you can follow thought leaders like that are going to give you what you need to keep going. But whatever it is, find somebody. And conferences and workshops, in-person stuff has certainly come back. I was at a conference yesterday in Atlantic City. I think it's really important to be out meeting people. One of the most valuable things is just seeing people face to face. As a solo entrepreneur, you have less opportunities to do that because, generally speaking, you're working on your own from home, or you're working in a shared office space where nobody has anything to do with you per se. The opportunity to see people in person, I'm talking like once a quarter or something like that. Not every day, but just get out from behind your screen, go meet some people. Something good will usually happen. And it also forces you to tell people a little bit of your pitch, a little bit about what you do, and it makes spontaneous connections possible. And that's really one of the key, that's one of the key things that's missing from most solo entrepreneurs' lives, because they don't have much spontaneity. They're kind of in control of the whole environment, and you want to take yourself out of that a little bit. You have to take regular breaks from what you're doing. Different people need different amount of breaks, and it's important to know yourself. At the same time, you need to work in blocks of time. That's one of the simplest. If you want the one biggest calendar hack that anybody can tell you, it's work in blocks of time. Every person on the planet, I don't care if you have ADHD or ADD, like almost all entrepreneurs do, almost everybody on the planet works better when they're working in blocks of time. If you want to be working on making a decision about a certain vendor, block off 2 hours to do it. Don't do it in 6 20-minute increments scattered throughout the week. People get into the framework of doing one thing. Do the same thing a few times in one block of time instead of breaking it all up if it's the same task. If you're making phone calls, block off 2 hours of your day for phone calls. If you want to go out and meet clients, block off 4 hours of your day to walk, if you're meeting clients in person. Whatever it is, you work in blocks of time as opposed to a scattered, haphazard approach. If you're working in if you're really good with scheduling, Calendly is great for this, because you can, if there are external people like clients or vendors that are booking time on your calendar, you can use Calendly to, it's $15 a month. These are all low cost type of tools, but use your calendar and work in blocks of time, and find a way to, if you want to use, I happen to like the Headspace app. If you're into that kind of thing, it's great. It's a little cheesy, but once you get used to it and you kind of get the butterflies out, that this is important to you and important to the business, Headspace there's a good free trial to just do some kind of slow down for 10-15 minutes a day and just rest a little bit. Like I said before, it's important to have something else, anything else that's not the business that you are interested in doing. Of course, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist. If you feel like you're in over your head, don't wait till it's too late to actually get some professional help. It's totally fine. It's a normal thing. I've seen a psychologist before. Most entrepreneurs, either they have something that they can use from a therapist, whether it's just in a time of crisis or whether it's on an ongoing basis. But if you feel like you need help, don't wait to get it. You have to, like we were talking about before, you have to acknowledge and reward yourself for whatever achievements you have. Realize that you're actually accomplishing something just by keeping the business going. So figure out a way to do that. You have to set aside time. I would say, again, each quarter, what progress have we made? Where would I have fallen short this quarter? What do I want to do differently the next quarter? But you have to build in time to your calendar on a quarterly basis of I would put in there an hour to reflect on what progress is made and what I want to do differently next quarter. Again, it's end of the calendar year right now. It's a great time to start with it. You need to be able to share your success with other people. As a solo entrepreneur, you are the business. So people are going to pick up on your positivity or your lack of positivity. Everybody knows that every solo entrepreneur has tons of setbacks all the time. You need to be the type of person who's always sharing the most recent success, even if it's still small to you, and even if it's not where you want to ultimately go. You need to be able to share that positively and excitedly with other people. The fact of the matter is, I don't have as many clients as I would love to have. I still have room for a few more in January. But you know, if I project that image of somebody who's not where they want to be, that's very different than saying I work with 20 successful entrepreneurs right now, and I'd love to add you to the list. Like that's a much more powerful pitch, and it's the truth for any business. Because if you're a solo entrepreneur, you're probably the salesperson too. So I'd love to connect with everybody. I didn't get everybody's names. This is not like super interactive, but I always want to make, you know, I'm available. I really care about CHYE as an organization. I got into business coaching professionally, frankly, because I volunteered for TJE, for the Jewish Entrepreneur, which I know CHYE has worked closely with in the past. So I have a lot of hakaras hatov to organizations like this that are supporting from people that are trying to make a living, trying to put their kids through day school, which is obviously expensive, live from lives. We all need to make more money. We're all in it together. If I can ever help anybody with small questions, you can feel free to reach out to me. Please, if you're not using your phone to watch this, use the QR code. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. Even if you don't want to talk, that's totally fine too. Just connect with me on LinkedIn so that we can stay in touch. And if take down my information, I'll make the slideshow available to Rabbi Wordy if he wants to send it out. And what questions can I answer? What did I not cover? What did you wish that I would have covered? Oh, just open up the floor to questions. Anybody who's interested in whatever time we have left.
You could go over time. This is Q&A time now. People could ask questions and
I have
whoever's
a
interested.
if you don't mind. My question is, how do you know when is the right time to hire somebody full time and either move on to the next thing or just, you know, take the gas off the pedal personally? That's
a great question. It's funny, that was actually I've done one presentation for CHYE before, and it was how to hire your first employee. So that might be a broader answer if you want to look that up, but it's on YouTube, I think. I think number one is you have to figure out why you're hiring the person. Are you hiring them to replace you? Are you hiring them to grow the business? That's number one.
Yeah,
you have to
move on to something else. In other words, how do I know when is the time to move on to something else?
Meaning, cut bait. This isn't going to be the thing that's going to do it for me. I need to move on in this isn't going to be my primary occupation anymore type of thing.
No, I mean, it could be making, it could be it's going good, but, you know, maybe something could go better. It's going good.
I think so that's a really individualized question. I don't want to give you a general answer because it's really specific. You have to have something you're moving towards and not just be throwing in the towel, or otherwise it's just close the company. So what are you moving towards, and what system and framework do you have that you can hand this over to somebody else and they're actually more likely to be successful? That's the key question I would say to be asking yourself. So do you have a way to easily hand this off that it'll be, you know, more successful with this new person?
Right.
That's a general answer to a very specific question, but I'm happy to, if you want, you can reach out to me. I'm happy to book time with you to talk about your particular situation too.
Got it. Thank you.
Eric, how are you? JJ Katz.
Hi, how are you?
Baruch Hashem. I posted a question in the chat, but
I didn't see. Oh, there's 7 things in the chat here. Look at that.
So I'm just curious on your take on this. What is your start time to take calls on your cell phone in the morning and end time in the evening? And do you differentiate between, oh my gosh, this is a big deal I'm working on, so I'll take their call at 11 o'clock at night, or listen, it's after 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, or whatever your cutoff time is, or before 8 o'clock or 9 in the morning, say, listen, before this time, I'm not picking up my phone, not because you're sitting in a share learning,
Yeah.
Because these are
You
the,
don't want to.
right.
It's not healthy long term.
Right. So I'm curious what your times are, and would you differentiate it if it's something big you're working on, no matter what
Sure.
time it is?
So I'll tell you what I do personally, and I think this is like, somewhere in the middle type of thing. That's at least where I try to be. My hours are Monday through Thursday, 9 to 6, Friday, 9 to, about 3 o'clock. So those are my general working hours. I am not a morning person, so I like going to Davin at 8 o'clock and coming back, getting a cup of coffee, sitting down at my desk.
That's
That's
early
me
in Crown
personally.
Heights anyway.
So yeah, 8 o'clock's an early minion, I guess. So for here, I live in Atlanta, Georgia. That's the latest minion in town. So that's it would have to be an exceptional situation for me to do a call at 7 a.m. Like really exceptional. I cannot remember the last time I did that. But for me personally, if it's 8 o'clock, I've already put my younger kids to bed. My Fabrusa doesn't start till 9. I don't have anything particular that I'm tied to at that moment. If somebody really needs to talk at 8 o'clock, once every 3 or 4 weeks, I'm fine taking a call then. Like that'll happen. It works for me. But if you ask me to take a call in the middle of dinner time when it's coming out of my family's time, like I'm not going to do it. So you have to set boundaries for yourself and first figure out just your default of what you want. And yeah, of course, if it's a big deal and it's going to make you a lot of money, take the call. Like make an exception. You're in control. You need to be able to have the ability to make exceptions, but you also have to have a default of like, I'm not going to do this. And what each person's needs to be different. I had a client that it was a great example. It was a unique client. She was a career coaching client, and she had a particular need to do this coaching like right then. And she wanted 2 sessions for an hour and a half each. That was the whole engagement. It wasn't my normal thing that I do. And she needed it by Monday. And it was I think Tuesday. She wanted to get 2 sessions in. And Tisha B'Av was in there also. So I charged her a lot of money, and I did a call with her from 9:30 to 11, Motzei Tisha B'Av. That works okay for me. I fast all right, and it didn't interfere with anything else. It was a little weird, but I don't think most people would do that. But for me, like that was an exception I was willing to make. And there was a decent amount of money involved, and it wasn't going to repeat, and it wasn't going to drain me all the time. So that for me was an exception. I mean, I'm just trying to give you talk through a few scenarios to give you some examples of the type of thinking. You got to be willing to make exceptions to whatever your rules are. You're in charge of the rule book.
Do you think it comes across as unprofessional if you take calls late at night? Like, I feel like, and I'm reversing the question. I'm not asking from like, let's say I'm willing to take calls at any time. I will take calls at 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, I don't care. But yeah, does it come across as unprofessional?
I think if the person feels that you do this for everybody all the time, yeah, it sounds unprofessional. Like if I was hiring, I don't know, a financial advisor, and I say like, can we do a call at 3 o'clock in the morning because I'm in Israel? And they say, sure. I'd be like, you can't be that good or else you wouldn't need to do this. But if I ask them like, this is like an emergency, I'm really sorry. I know this is outside your normal thing. And they say like, I really don't do this, but like, I'm happy to try to accommodate. I can't do 3 in the morning, but like I could do, something else. Like, I don't think that's unprofessional. That shows good service. So I think it's about making sure that you're making them aware that you're making an exception for them. Not that like, oh yeah, sure. No problem. I'm happy to talk to you. Anytime that you want to talk to me, I'll talk to you. Like that does seem unprofessional, I think. So be willing to make exceptions to your rigidity. That's what makes people like you.
Yeah, if I might add, maybe, I mean, I think he said it, but in different words. If you need to pick it up and it's like sort of after hours, maybe just pick up and say, hey, it is late, but because you're important to me as a client, this time, I'll take your call.
Right.
In other words, like that.
Yes, exactly. You have to make them feel, you use it as an opportunity to make them feel special and make them understand that you're making an exception for them. Then I think you preserve that professional type of relationship while giving great client service. You want to be able to give better service than any of your competitors. One of the ways to do that is availability when you can do it, when it's good for you. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to not put my kid to bed when that's an important value to me, and it's important to my wife, and it's important to my kid. I'm not just going to take your client, you know, the client call will wait. There'll always be another client call. I want to just answer this because I think it's an important question. Jay Wasserman, why and how did having a dedicated workspace outside your bedroom help? I was personally, and I don't think I'm exceptional in this way. I thought it doesn't matter. I'm just a guy with a phone and a computer. I don't need anything else. I can stare at the wall for 9 hours a day. There were a lot of days where if I wasn't the type of person who went to Minion every day, I would not have left the house like for a week. Other than that, like I had no reason to leave because I wasn't going anywhere. It is like scientifically impossible. People are not meant to stay in isolation like that. Physically having a good chair and a good desk it just makes you work better. People feel happy when they see things around them that they like. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a psychologist. I just know it to be true. People need a work environment that works for them. It had a tangible, I am not like a stuffed type of guy. And I had the mentality, like I didn't know this about myself before I started. I had the mentality of, I don't need any of that junk, that's for other people. And it really wasn't true. Once I moved to a larger house with a bedroom that had a window that overlooked a nice street, I worked much better. Okay. We talked about the start times. And again, so I said 9 to 6 for myself, but like that's just me personally. You could have a different, it could be that you're working 4 hours a day and you have something else you're doing with the rest of your time. That's totally fine. The point is just to have some set type of time. Gershon Haft, you asked, how do you handle the stresses of a commission-only role? Tell me more about that. What else can you share?
Hi everyone. I work in life insurance, and it's a rewarding business, but it's also very tough at times, especially when your clients are in the Jewish community. So like for holidays, for example, just radio silence. No one's looking to talk about that during that time. So I wonder if you have any insight about maybe how to handle that stress, or maybe what you could speak about that.
Sure. So I think it's the most important thing is to be able to focus on what you can control. Like you can't make somebody buy life insurance, Erev Yom Kippur, like it's just not going to happen. Just not going to happen. And it's a fool's errand to really try. You could use that time to write thank you cards to all of your past clients for the year. You could use that time to write, good Yom Tov cards. You could use that time to be sending out gifts. You could use that time to be taking time for yourself. But the point is you have to be realistic with what you can accomplish and set goals for yourself that are task oriented in terms of things that you can control. So you can't control how much life insurance you sell ever on any given day. Like all you can control is how many phone calls you make, how many events you attend, how many emails you send out, how many new contacts you add on LinkedIn, whatever your methods are and whatever the tools and tricks you're using are, those are the things that you can control. If you set goals for yourself within those areas, you're much more likely to be successful in the long term. And I think you bring up Yom Tov. I think that's the most poignant example that there really is. Because Erev Yom Tov, a lot of people in the Frum community are doing business with other people in the Frum community. We're all in the same boat. So Yom Tov season, everything just really, really slows down. If you're trying to push yourself to really get new business at that time, you're going to end up disappointed. It's not realistic. So you have to realize what's realistic and what's not, and how you want to structure your days in the times when you just know that you can't reach anybody now. You could say like Friday afternoon, I have no responsibilities. I'm a single guy, and I can work till 2 minutes before Shabbos. If you're working with Frum people, for example, you're just not going to be able to do business at that time. So you can do something else. You can set up your structure for the next week. You can find other ways to be productive, but it's not going to be with outbound, calls, let's say, in your business. So I think it's important to look at what you can control, because in those areas you can stay motivated and stay on point with what you can control. What else do we have here? I think that's it for the questions.
Can I just follow up one if you have
Yeah,
to?
sure.
just getting back to what we were talking about before, like professional and unprofessional. So let's say you have, because this comes up with me all the time. Let's say I'm going to have a meeting with somebody, right? And this person's a very harsh of a person. And again, I work for myself. I can technically make the meeting work. Like I'll clear my schedule to make the meeting work whenever time works for them. Are you saying it's not a good idea to be like, hey, I'm available 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Let me know.
Okay, so that's a great specific question. So first of all, if you're using a booking software like Calendly, that's great because it lets people decide on their own. A lot of people like to do that.
No, it's more like,
But if it's more in person, I would give somebody 3 times. You do want to create a little bit of scarcity with your time, even if you have all the time in the world. So let's say you're calling the person, and if you say I can do Monday at 2, Tuesday at 1, or Wednesday at 9, and they say, oh, I can't do any of those times. I can only do Tuesday at 4. Okay, great. I'll make it work. That I would say give somebody 3 times and very different days and different times of the day. If it's the type of person that you would drop everything to talk to, you don't want to say any day 9 to 6, my schedule is yours. What do you want to do? I'll clear everything. Like that's a little bit too much client service.
right.
And it sounds a little too desperate. But give somebody 3 times as a default.
Thank you. Got it. Yeah.
Okay, anything else? I don't see any more questions. Are there
I have a question.
Yes.
First of all, thank you very much for your beautiful presentation. I think it's very helpful, especially to those who are solo. They may be solo in offices, but they're everybody's a solo by the end of the day. But
That's right.
my question to you is, what if you're a solo in a few projects? How do you keep each project up in the air?
That's great. Are the projects similar to one another, or they're totally dissimilar, nothing to do with one another, completely disconnected?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. The best advice I would give to somebody in that kind of a situation is you have to use blocks of time. It's got to be.
You know what? I'll make the question a little more clear and tougher. One is passion driven, and one is money driven.
Okay. I think the answer is still the same. It has to be driven by blocks of time. You have to decide how much time you want to give to the money driven one, and you have to decide how much time you want to give to the passion driven one. Like, let's say there's a 40-hour work week, for argument's sake. You have to divide that up. I want to give 10 to this and 30 to this, or the opposite, or 20-20, whatever the numbers are. Literally look at your calendar and block off the time, varied, because you're going to need to probably touch both of them over the course of every single day. So you need to have some time each day to work on both of them. Chances are, I don't know you for your situation specifically, but chances are either one of them would not be enough for you. If you just did the passion project, you wouldn't be able to pay your mortgage. And if you just did the money project, you would burn out because you're not passionate about this. You're doing it to earn a paycheck. So, or at least most people in that situation would say something like that. So I would try to make sure that every single day you're touching each of the projects and just block off your time. The most important thing is to do it with intentionality. Don't just fall into the day and be like, I had a lot of good phone calls, sent some emails, cleared out my inbox, then I organized my desk, and then had a meeting, talked to a vendor, and like it was 6 o'clock and the day was over. What do you accomplish? I'm not sure. Like that's what you're trying to avoid. You want to be regimented with things that you can control, and the biggest thing that you can control is your schedule. That's the advantage of being a solo entrepreneur. You don't answer to a boss, and you can be the one driving the ship, driving the bus.
Got it. I thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending. I think the recording will be available. Again, I really mean it when I say I'm like, if you have a quick question, you want to schedule time with me, I'm happy to chat. If anybody actually wants to talk about working together professionally, of course, please feel free to reach out. I'm a business coach for founders and entrepreneurs, and I'd always appreciate any referrals that I get. Last time I did one of these, I had like an unbelievable response. Really appreciate that. The biggest favor you can do for me is to refer me to somebody that you know. That's the biggest compliment. And I look forward to being in touch.
Okay. Thank you very much, Eric.
Question?
Yeah, sure.
That'd be okay. Thanks. First, just wanted to just add a point. First of all, thank you. I unfortunately missed the beginning of it. I had a meeting that went overtime that I couldn't get out of. So if
Okay.
there was a ability to see some of it, that would be great. Just I'm sure you touched on some points that would be useful. So the question, adding on to what one of the earlier ones asked, if you have a business that you've seen over, he was saying like before Yontif, let's say you see over a 2-3 year period that a certain time of year, let's say like Yontif time, is generally a slow time. So whether it's tightening the belt, whatever it is, over that time, something can be harder. What can you do in that specific time period? I know you're saying about trying to keep the busy work done that you can get done then, but what else would you say mind wise to keep yourself motivated during that specific time period?
So that's a great question. We touched on that a little bit. I think to just embellish the idea a little bit further, you have to set your expectations reasonably. So whatever you want to accomplish, there is something you can accomplish during that time. Every solo entrepreneur has things that they can do that don't require a single other person in the world, that don't require any other inputs other than themselves and their attention and their hard work. So that's the time to work on those things and forget about trying to get new clients, for example, during that time period. It's just not going to happen. If you have some very low-hanging fruit, very warm leads you want to follow up with, great. But like as a matter of course, like it's banging your head against the wall is going to be very unfulfilling. It's not really likely to like bring you much success. So don't try. Most people say, I'm going to push through and this is hard work and I'm going to do it. And they really try hard. And they were trying to like lift a 7,000 pound weight. Like it's impossible. You're not going to do it. You're just going to feel worse about it afterwards. So
you're saying grab the successes in what you can accomplish at that time and call that the success.
That's how you're defining the success. It's not, you have to reframe the definition of success from what it was at, or what it is at different points of the year. That's the key point.
Okay, I actually saw a point this morning in the Chavis Alavis, which really resonated with me. He said that if you see that you didn't make any money that day, he said it could be that what you were supposed to get that day, you already had received it from yesterday, so it was already in your pocket. It could be that.
There you go.
That's really part of the point. And he said, but it shouldn't stop you from continuing to try to persevere.
Right.
That was the line. It resonated really, really well with me.
Yeah,
So
that's beautiful. I think that's very true. And I think that there's, you have to be willing to live with not hitting a goal sometime too, and being willing to, it's part of our Amunah and Bitachon to be able to accept things even if they don't go exactly how, like HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not a vending machine, right? Like it's not like I put in my hishtadlus, then I better get out the candy. So I think it's important to realize, our place in this whole thing. All of what I just talked about is hishtadlus. At the end of the day, it's up to Ribono Shel Olam to do what he's going to do to help us get what we need, and we have to have bitachon that exactly what we have, and that's what we're supposed to have. But that doesn't give me the right to not to say, okay, I'm going to sit back and Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to provide. It don't work that way.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay.
I do have to go. I appreciate everybody being here. Rabbi Wordy, thank you so much for the platform, and to CHYE. And until next time.
Okay, take care, everybody. I hope you enjoyed. We'll send out the recording Mirza Shem tomorrow. And looking forward to staying in touch. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful Chodesh. And an easy fast.
Well, too.
This Friday. Yes.
Thank you, everybody.